Good morning, how you doing? If excuse me, I've got me work clothes on again. I've been working in my lockup. I don't know if you remember, but I was discussing, I think I've mentioned it a few times actually, about the double slit experiment and how it was a scientific test, how it showed about atoms and light waves and quantum electrons and atoms that are nano, really small in other words, and they were shone through, and light shone through two slits in a piece of card, through the slits onto another piece of card behind, say 3-4 foot away, to see how these photons, electrons, neutrons, atoms and light waves would behave, because they found out, and this is a big thing at the moment, this is why I'm hoping don't start this again, I'm on the bloody thingy. They were trying to explain about how the universe is conscious, hard to get your head around that. So what they did was this experiment, which is called the double slit experiment. I've got a thing here on AI, which I could let it read out, but it sounds really peculiar, so I'm going to read it out myself to you. It's absolutely mind-blowing, because when they shone, at quantum level, wave, light particles in wavelengths, it done a very strange thing. Basically, when they found out that when you just looking at the experiment, just looking at the particles going through the double slits and hitting the other side, when the person was just watching, the experiment and looking at the back card, especially with the light, obviously the nanoparticles, they couldn't see that with the eye, but they done it via whatever experiment they did to pick up how the particles reacted and what they did when they went through the slit and hit the piece of card or whatever it is they use. I think it was just a piece of card, what it did when it hit the other side once it had been through the slits. And they found out from that experiment that when you look, this is so weird, but this is what I'm trying to say to you about the consciousness of the universe. This explains it a little bit, because when they shone these particles, nano quantum particles, neutrons and the rest of it, through these slits, when they looked at it, they behaved differently to when they weren't looking at it. What? How can a particle, a quantum, wave particle, act differently when you look at it and when you don't look at it? What? Do you know what I'm saying? But it did. They found out that when you just viewed it, it was like these little nano atomic particles, neutrons, knew that they were being watched. These are atomic particles, quantum, nano neutrons. So they were trying to say they're conscious in a strange way, hence the universe being a conscious entity. Hard to get your head around, isn't it? I will read out to you what I've done on AI, so bear with me. Right, this is a double slit experiment explained better than I can. Let me have a sip of water. The double slit experiment is a fundamental experiment in quantum mechanics that demonstrates the wave-particle duality of light and other quantum particles. It was first performed by an English physicist called Thomas Young in 1801, and it has since become one of the most famous experiments in history of science. The basic setup of the double slit experiment is as follows. A source of light or other quantum particles, such as electrons or atoms, is directed towards a barrier with two narrow slits in it. Behind the barrier, a screen is placed to detect the particles that pass through the slits. When the experiment is conducted with light, the expected result, based on the classic wave theory of light, is that the light was passed through both slits and created an interference pattern on the screen on the other side, with alternating bright and dark regions. This is because light is a wave, and when two waves overlap, they can either constructively interfere, resulting in a bright spot, or destructively interfere and resulting in a dark spot. However, when the experiment is conducted with individual particles such as electrons or photons, the expected result based on the classical particle theory is that the particles will pass through one slit or the other, creating two distinct patterns on the screen on the other side with no interference. Surprisingly, the actual result of the double slit experiment is that even when individual particles are sent through the slits, an interference pattern is still observed on the screen on the other side. The observation is a clear demonstration of the wave-particle duality of quantum particles, where they exhibit both wave-like and particle-like properties. Wow. The double slit experiment has had a profound impact on our understanding of the nature of the reality at the quantum level. It has challenged our classical intuitions about the behavior of matter and energy, and it has led to the development of quantum mechanics, which has revolutionized our understanding of the physical world. It doesn't say the rest of it. I'll get another one up and I'll read it out to you. But what they found out from doing that, bombarding atoms, light waves through the double slits, that they behaved in such a way that was unexpected. It revolutionised that particular field because of the way they behaved. And as I say, what they did, they behaved in a way as if they were conscious. And I'll find out and I'll read it out to you about when they looked at it. The patterns behaved differently once they passed through they were bombarded and sent through the slits. They behaved differently pattern-wise on the opposite side on the board that it was captured on, to when they didn't look at it. What? Hence the theory, or pretty much fact, that even at an atomic level, neutrons, particles, atoms somehow have a consciousness. Get your head around that. How weird is that? Because that the experiments that they done, as I say, when they looked at it, they were just looking at the experiment and watching, the particles that they couldn't even see apart from the light, which obviously you can clearly see light, can't you? But the atomic level of neutrons that you can't see with the eye, can you? But they discovered that when you were just watching, these neutrons, atoms, even the light waves behaved differently to when they watched and when they didn't watch, as if they were consciously aware they were being watched. Wow. So if you get, half an hour, I say, an hour spare, and you want to understand what I'm talking about, because, I've explained it a bit there from AI, which I've just read from. Look up the double slit experiment and put in how the atoms, neutrons and the light waves behave when you look at it and when you don't look at it. It's mind-blowing. How can a light wave or an atom or a neutron behave differently just by looking at it? That is why, as I said, people are saying the universe is a conscious entity even at an atomic level. So hence the universe being conscious in a way that is so weird and so hard to get your head around, but it really did open up many fields in many directions scientifically because of that specific experiment, the double slit experiment. So if you get half an hour, look up the double slit experiment, because it will help you to understand how we've come to the conclusion that the universe is a factual, living, conscious entity. Far out, hey, how about that one? So yeah, double slit experiment.